the experiment that shook reality, the double-slit experiment. In 1701, a scientific experiment changed our understanding of reality forever. The discovery made that day was so profound that even today, despite living in a world shaped by quantum mechanics, we still struggle to fully grasp its implications. What we're talking about is the double-slit experiment, one of the cornerstones of modern physics. This experiment didn't just revolutionize science, it forced us to question the very nature of reality, consciousness, and existence itself. So, if you're ready, let's dive into one of the greatest discoveries in human history. What is the double-slit experiment? One of the brilliant minds of the 19th century, Thomas Young, was born in 1773 in England. A true polymath, he made significant contributions to physics, medicine, linguistics, and even Egyptology. He was so knowledgeable that he was often called the last man who knew everything. But in 1801, he conducted an experiment that would change not just our understanding of light, but also our entire perception of reality. At the time, scientists were divided. Was light made of particles, or was it a wave? Isaac Newton believed light consisted of tiny particles, while others argued that it behaved like a wave. To settle the debate, Young designed a brilliant yet simple experiment. How was the experiment conducted? First, he used a light source, a candle in those days, and passed the light through a small slit to focus it. Then, the light encountered a barrier with two narrow slits. Behind the barrier, a screen was placed to observe how the light behaved. If light was made of particles, it should pass through the two slits and form two distinct lines on the screen, just like bullets fired from a gun. But something unexpected happened. Instead of forming two simple lines, the light created an interference pattern, a series of bright and dark bands. This pattern was a clear indication that light was behaving like a wave. Why? Because waves, unlike particles, interfere with each other. As they pass through both slits, they either reinforce or cancel each other out, forming a pattern of alternating light and dark bands. This experiment debunked Newton's particle theory and provided solid proof that light moves as a wave, a discovery that shattered reality. But the real shock came over a century later when scientists repeated the experiment, not with light, but with electrons and photons, tiny particles of matter. Logically, they expected the particles to behave like tiny bullets, forming two distinct lines on the screen. But no, the interference pattern still appeared. This meant that each individual electron was somehow passing through both slits simultaneously, as if it were a wave interfering with itself. And then, the truly mind-blowing part happened. Scientists placed a detector at the slits to observe which path each electron took, and the moment they started watching, the interference pattern disappeared. Somehow, the simple act of observing forced the electrons to behave like particles instead of waves. In other words, reality changed the moment it was observed. What does this mean? The double-slit experiment remains one of the biggest mysteries in quantum mechanics. It suggests that reality might be connected to consciousness, that the mere act of observing could shape the way the universe behaves. The mystery of wave function collapse. One of the biggest questions raised by this experiment is known as wave function collapse, a phenomenon described by the famous German physicist Werner Heisenberg. In simple terms, before being observed, a particle exists in a state of superposition, meaning it is in all possible states at once. But the moment it is observed, it collapses into a single reality. This suggests that reality is not fixed. Instead, It exists as a field of infinite possibilities until it interacts with a conscious observer. This raises a profound question. What role does the observer play in the universe? Could human consciousness itself influence the physical world on a quantum level? Interestingly, Hermes Trismegistus, a figure from ancient esoteric teachings, may have answered this question thousands of years ago. As above, so below. Wave function, collapse. Do we create reality? Imagine standing in front of a closed door. Behind it, there could be a dog, a cat, or nothing at all. Until you open the door and look inside, all these possibilities exist at the same time. The quantum world works in a similar way. Before being observed, a particle exists in a state of superposition. It holds all possible outcomes simultaneously. But the moment you measure or observe it, something magical happens. All possibilities vanish, and only one reality remains. This phenomenon is known as wave function collapse. Simply put, the observer's attention transforms possibilities into reality. But could this phenomenon apply not just to physics, but also to our daily lives? When we focus on something, when we direct our energy and attention toward it, are we actually strengthening it and bringing it into reality? If you focus only on problems, they seem to grow even larger. But if you focus on solutions and possibilities, a new reality begins to emerge. For example, if someone struggling financially spends all their time worrying about debt, they may find their debts increasing. But if they shift their focus to how they can create wealth, suddenly, opportunities, solutions, and connections appear. So the next time you feel stuck, remember, limits are only temporary. The universe is filled with infinite possibilities, waiting for you to align your focus with them. This reminds us of the first principle of Hermetic philosophy. The universe is mental. The quantum void, what lies beyond reality. Thomas Young's experiment led to the birth of quantum mechanics, opening the door to many revolutionary discoveries. But perhaps the most fundamental of them all is the concept of the quantum void. So, if we dive deep into reality, what do we actually find? Imagine looking at your hand under a powerful microscope. At first, you see molecules. Zooming in further, you see atoms, then protons, neutrons, and electrons orbiting around them. As you go even deeper, you reach quarks, the tiny building blocks of protons and neutrons. This is where science stands today. But what lies beyond that? There are two major theories. One, string theory. It suggests that beneath quarks, there exist vibrating strings of energy, superstrings. Two, the Higgs boson. It proposes that a mysterious energy field gives mass to everything in the universe. But even beyond these, at the most fundamental level of existence, we find the quantum void. This is not emptiness. On the contrary, it is the source of everything. Scientists now believe that the quantum void is an infinite energy field containing all potential realities. So, if the foundation of reality is an energy field full of infinite possibilities, does this mean that we can shape reality with our minds? The source of everything, the quantum void and the divine spark. At the core of the universe lies the quantum void, the primordial field from which all existence emerges. From this field, energy arises and interacts with the Higgs field, giving birth to matter. This energy then forms quarks, which form protons. Protons form atoms. Atoms form molecules. Molecules form cells. Cells form organs. And organs create living beings. Take the human body, for example. Every physical form is born from a single source, the quantum void. This field is the essence of all things, the only true reality. Everything else is either a reflection of it or its way of organizing itself. Metaphors help us understand this truth, but in the end, all metaphors are just that, metaphors. At its deepest level, the universe is nothing but energy. Galaxies, stars, planets, and living beings. They are all different manifestations of this energy. Outside of this energy, nothing exists. To understand the quantum void is to understand existence itself. The divine spark. What is true enlightenment? When energy interacts with the Higgs field, it gains mass and transforms into matter. But in its purest form, this energy is weightless and formless, just like a particle's wave function. Here, a profound realization emerges. Human beings are also born from the quantum void. This means that at our core, we are not separate from it. We are a part of it. Ancient teachings have referred to this essence as the divine spark. Just like a fingerprint, every living being is a unique expression of this spark, but the source remains the same, the quantum void. And true enlightenment is nothing more than experiencing this truth. An enlightened being is simply one who fully feels this connection. This experience reveals the unity of all things. Without this awareness, the illusion of separation continues. To feel oneness is to dissolve all conflict, because once you realize that separation is just an illusion, war, selfishness, and power struggles lose their meaning. Letting go of the ego and unlocking true power. But how do we achieve this? First, we must understand the nature of the ego. The ego is the part of the mind that constantly seeks control. But ironically, the more it tries to control, the more problems it creates. Why? The ego cannot see the whole picture. The ego believes it is separate from everything else. The ego thinks it can control life on its own. But the real solution is to let go of the ego and surrender to the divine spark. This does not mean doing nothing. On the contrary, it means opening ourselves to the guidance of the divine spark, taking care of the body and mind, continuing to learn and grow, trusting our inner guidance. This is the true meaning of surrendering the ego. Because our body is simply a vessel for the divine spark. And if the vessel is broken or neglected, how can the spark shine through? But once we acknowledge the divine spark and make space for it, life begins to align. Suffering is not a necessity. Suffering is simply resistance to this truth. If a cell forgets that it is part of the liver, it might believe it is a separate being. But in reality, it belongs to something much greater. And just like that, we are within the universe, and the universe is within us. The One is all, and all is one. Understanding reality is the quantum void God. The root cause of war, exploitation, hunger, and injustice is the illusion of separation. If humanity truly understood that everything is one, these problems would disappear. So now, let's ask an important question. What are the attributes of God? Omnipresence, the ability to be everywhere at once. Omnipotence, the ability to do anything. Omniscience, the ability to know everything. Now let's compare this to the quantum void. It exists at every point in the universe. It is omnipresent. It contains infinite potential. It is omnipotent. It is the source of all things. It is omniscient. So, could the quantum void be God? Or rather, is God simply the quantum void itself? If humanity embraces this truth, all conflicts and divisions will end. But great paradigm shifts are always met with resistance. Newton's theory of gravity and Einstein's theory of relativity were once rejected, and today, the reality revealed by quantum mechanics is still not fully accepted. But truth always finds its way. One day, these ideas may be taught in schools, just like the laws of gravity. As Max Planck, the father of quantum mechanics, once said, "Science progresses one funeral at a time." What do you think? Is there a connection between the quantum void and God? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if you want to keep exploring reality, make sure to subscribe to the channel.